Hi, this is a Blender tutorial. We're going to be looking at how to do displacement using texture mapping. And this is the effect that we're going for. So the displacement will actually modify the vertices on the object. Let's take a look at the cube. The cube has been subdivided into many vertices. So if you don't have a lot of vertices, then the displacement won't work. Okay. So we have our texture map, and it is affecting both the texture and the material. And down here you can see we're using the displacement. Here we're using the color. This displacement is a ratio of the size of the object. So at 0.1, it will scale the bright areas 0.1 the size of the object. And the dark areas will remain where they are. And it will scale it based on the brightness. So if it's full on ones, it will be scaled at 0.1. If it's 0, it's going to scale 0. Okay, here we also have color, so that's why we have both texture and material. So this is the texture, and this is what it looks like on the sphere. And if we click on the cube, we can see how it's mapped on the cube. And down here, we have generated and cube. So let's take a look at the render one more time. And older versions of Blender will have it default to generated. Newer versions of Blender will have it default to UV. And that's not what we want. So it doesn't appear correct when we use UV. So please set it on generated if you're having that problem. Okay, so if we go back and we scale this a little bit more, say 0.5, and render, it makes all the bright areas stick out more. Now, if we put this at 0, it's just a cube. Okay, notice that there's space to move the slider this way, so we can actually do this at negative 0.1. So now the bright areas are going to go inwards. Okay, so it's going to be scaled back. And that's how that works. So you need lots of vertices to make this work, and unfortunately, lots of vertices means slower render times. If you decide to use normal, let's take a look at what that looks like. So the normal will make it look raised by changing the normal. It'll point in a slightly different direction. And you can see that these white bands make it look at 3D, but it's actually still a flat cube. Okay, we can make it more pronounced. Change that to 5. And becomes a little bit more pronounced. And you can get faster renders, but I think displacement gives it a much more natural look. Because if you're viewing it from an angle instead of head on, you'll actually see the displacement effect. And you won't see any displacement effect if you have it on just normal. This is for the Blender internal renderer. If you're using cycles, you'll have to do this differently. So you have to watch the cycles lesson for that. And just so you know, this is the texture I'm using. It has dark, gray, bright, and it's just easier to see this texture on our object. And let's just take a look at the cylinder. The cylinder has the tube, and the sphere has the sphere projection. So these projections work properly. The only part that's not quite right with the tube projection is the top. Okay, you can always partition this and put a different top and bottom on. The sphere projection looks like it's doing what it's supposed to. Okay, and you can see that it's repeated 4 times all the way around the object. And that completes this lesson.